You're listening to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans.
I'm really happy to be here. It's a pleasure for me.
Fonte with a scooping header.
I would like to make the most of with this opportunity.
It's infield to Mane, 25 yards out. Lovely ball for Bella. Onside, 1-0. Buffon shot. Oh my word.
He ran around a bit like Bambi on ice. It was very, very embarrassing to watch.
And now, your host, Matt Markstone. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans. My name is Matt Markstone, and whether this is your first time here or you've been here before, thank you for making the show part of your day. I hope that you enjoy it. On episode 50, we've made some changes. Based on current runs of form, it was time to mix some things up. Hopefully they have the desired impact, and we'll see better performances both on and off the pitch. As you may have seen if you're a Twitter follower, we have a new partnership. We are partnering with The Saints Report. You can find The Saints Report on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Join The Saints Report, follow along, stay up to date with all of your Southampton FC needs. Other things that are new this week, the intro music has been changed around, and we'll have a few other changes throughout the show. Let us know what you think by getting in contact with us on social media. It is the holiday season, and no matter what holiday you are celebrating, if you are in the mood to give, please give a review of this show on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you don't listen in a way that allows you to leave a review, please consider sharing the show with someone you know. You can retweet the link, you can write your own post, you can tag the podcast in a tweet or a Facebook post. Whatever way you share the show, please do that. And remember that we're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at SFCDELL_IVERY on Twitter and Instagram, and at Facebook.com/SFC Delivery. On episode 50, we're joined by Chris Rann. Chris runs the GeorgeWhere'sCousin.com website. You can find him on Twitter at CRSteak. He needs very little introduction. He's been around a while. He's been a vocal Saints fan for some time, and he's been on the show before. So I was really excited to be able to talk with him about the Leicester City and Chelsea matches and what's going on at the club. We talked for quite a while, and we don't want to take up too much time here, so let's go ahead and move to my interview with Chris Rann. Hope you enjoy it. We'd like to welcome to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all the SFC fans, Chris Rann. You can find him on Twitter at CRStig, and you can visit his website at GeorgeWhere'sCousin.com. Chris, welcome back to the show, and thank you for joining me again.
Yeah, no problem, Matt. Just say congratulations on the 50th episode.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for being the 50th episode guest. Obviously I haven't had 50 different people, but maybe I have. It's been a lot, but I couldn't, like I said, I couldn't do this without, all of you guys coming on the show, because nobody wants to listen to just me talk about the team, and I don't want to do that. So, thanks for being a part of it and teaching me about the game so much.
No problem. It's an honor.
Unfortunately though, that's probably the best news we have for the day. Because, we haven't had the best run of results recently, but we'll get into that, soon. But your website, George Where's Cousin, people haven't visited. You do some stuff on there that's quite funny. You normally do some voting towards the end of the year about, awards and things like that. But recently you did, kind of an Ultimate Saints 11. And I don't know if you want to talk about that at all, or if you want to kind of point out who made your team and whatnot, or did that stir up any controversy when you did it?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, the Saints were running this Ultimate 11 competition to pick, the Ultimate 11 Saints players that have played for the club with 150 plus appearances. And I tweeted mine and got some interesting replies. Some people quite angry about it, that I didn't include Terry Payne, or I didn't include someone else from 1965. And the way I look at it was that, to me, picking people that I never saw play was a little bit ridiculous. So I sort of decided to write that up on my website, pick my team, be open about who my team was. I didn't see a need for it to be a secret. I got some odd responses. I mean, I find the whole thing baffling, really, that, it doesn't mean anything. It's just you picking your favourite players. And if your favourite players don't make it in the vote, that doesn't stop them being your favourite players. So I just sort of found it a little bit ridiculous. My team is only players that I saw play or I remember playing for Southampton. There's a couple of players in there that I never saw live, but I remember seeing on the TV playing for Southampton. And that just means my team is a team that's the ultimate 11 to me, I guess, is the way I saw it. Other people saw it that you've got to assess who was the best in this position. But if you never saw them play, I don't see how you can pick them the best. That's the way I see it.
Yeah. I think it would be difficult to compare across. I mean, the game's changed so much. Anybody who played in the Premier League era, there have been kind of huge changes in systems and what roles are for different positions and things like that. So I think it would be difficult to do that. And I totally agree. You're just voting for the players that you think are the best, that are your favorite. And,
Yeah. And it doesn't mean anything. So, there's no need to be angry about it. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't change who you like. That's the way I see it. And, for me, supporting a football team is a labour of love. And the players I picked are the ones that, made me smile, made me happy.
The one thing I can say is, whenever they do the, team of the week for MLS here in the States, they always pick a 3-man back line. Always.
Okay.
But I think only one or two teams in the entire league play a 3-man back line. So it's just because they want to put more, they want to put more attacking players in that team. So everybody, they always pick a 3-man back line just because they want more midfielders and things like that. The formation would never work. It's always shoehorned in and things like that.
I think in the UK that seems to have changed with trend. I think it always used to be a 4-4-2 formation for team of the weeks, and I think that's changed now with trend to having like a convoluted continental formation, if you like, a 5-3-2 or a 4-2-3-1. So I think the journalists here have tried to keep up with the change in tactics, but really, if it's team of the week, formation should suit who were the best players. I think why does it have to be a fixed formation?
Right. At school, our teacher team, we always play a 4-4-2 because we have one really old teacher who demands we play a 4-4-2. It is the best formation ever. And I say that, and we haven't won a game in 3 years. So, maybe one day they'll let me change it. Yeah,
but sometimes sticking to principles is better than winning, right?
I don't know. I guess that's a good segue into what we're going to talk about here.
You've seen the movie Mike Bassett?
No.
Okay, you should do that for homework. You should watch the English football movie Mike Bassett, England Manager.
All right.
So there's a lot of talk of 4-4-2 in that.
All right, I'm typing that out so you can hear that right now.
It's not a particularly good movie. It's not a particularly good movie, by the way, but there's some funny bits in it.
But I mean, I'm off for 3 weeks right now, so we'll make it happen. Anyway, welcome back to the show, and thanks for making me laugh because I kind of need it at this point. But let's go ahead and start in kind of on the Leicester City match. Coming off of the performance against Arsenal at the weekend, kind of almost had our hearts ripped out a little bit right at the end there. Looked like we were going to get a win, only came away with a draw. But coming into the Leicester City match, then I was expecting us to play with that kind of same intensity and things like that, and I think we did initially. I think the first couple of minutes, we looked okay, and then it kind of fell apart. But, did you have any issues with the formation that we chose and the personnel that we chose, going into that match?
Well, I think what happened was, and Saints have done this to me many times over the last 25 years, they lulled us into a false sense of security. We performed well against Arsenal. We should have won, perhaps. Well, we should have won, actually. We lost it late. Lost the points late, sorry. And so when we have Leicester at home next, Claude Puel coming back, we all let ourselves be tricked into thinking, oh, this could be a nice home win. With regards to the team, I'll tell you the conversation that we had in Dubai in the bar. We gluttons for punishment. We were there at midnight, excited to see Saints get a nice home win. And actually, the conversation we had leading up to the game was, is this our best team that's been picked here? And to be honest, the majority vote was that this was our best lineup. With perhaps the only contentious position, Yoshida is Yoshida better than Hoot? That's perhaps the only conversation to be had.
Right.
Or perhaps Højbjerg was unlucky not to play after his recent performances. So yeah, I mean, on the whole, everyone was quite looking forward to what we thought was going to be a comfortable home win.
Yeah, I mean, and Leicester obviously are playing well right now. And I think there was a little bit of added significance with Puel coming back. And I think the larger footballing world kind of looking at us, thinking that we kind of did him some sort of injustice. You know, maybe he didn't deserve to go. Yep. It wasn't him. And I understand that from somebody who doesn't maybe watch every week.
The narrative was there.
Yeah.
We treat him badly. Let's not beat around the bush. We did treat him badly. From an outsider's point of view, he did well. On paper, he did a good job at Saints.
Right.
And
absolutely.
that's how all outsiders are going to view it. So for every neutral watching the game, this was the chance for a spurned man who also got unnecessary abuse, let's face it, from some of our supporters.
Yes.
Which the one thing he did do as Saints manager was he kept his dignity. I mean, he didn't leave Saints as some huge villain, or at least he shouldn't have.
No.
So from an outsider's point of view, this was a guy with a chance to get his own back, and he did just that.
Yeah. I wrote somewhere something that, you know, he beat us with the kind of football we all dreamed of him playing when he was at Southampton, you know, like that's what we wished we could have seen. And he used it against us. But, going back to the lineup. Yeah. Somebody tweeted right when that lineup came out, like, this is the lineup I dream of us playing, you know, and unfortunately that tweet didn't age well because we looked terrible. But yeah, I think maybe Højbjerg has, based on his recent performances, should have been in there, but then who does he displace? You know, it seems like we've, turned our backs on Romeu to some extent, from being player of the year last year and all this stuff to being a guy that we want him out of the lineup. And it's difficult to kind of see. But I guess it is understandable because form changes not just from week to week, but from year to year. And it's not maybe a constant improvement type of situation.
Well, I mean, from that team lineup, I wouldn't, before the game, I wouldn't have been pushing for Romeu to be dropped. My position on that has changed. I do think it's time to leave him out for a game. I've got here in my notes the three players. I mean, no one was good. Let's make that clear. No one was good against Leicester. But the three players who stood out as being very bad for me in that game were Cedric, Van Dijk, and Romeu.
Mm-hmm.
Then no one else was much better, but those three stood out to me as having had 4 games.
Yeah.
And if you look at the way Leicester are playing with confidence at the moment, and if 3 of your defensive unit have poor games, then the outcome isn't actually that surprising.
No. And like you said, that some of those guys you wouldn't expect them to have games like that. Like you wouldn't expect all 3 of them to have a shocker in the same game. And
I wonder if we rushed Cedric back.
Yeah.
Was it the wisest move to put Cedric straight back in because he didn't have a very good game? And of course we now know what's happened against Chelsea. He's gone down injured again.
Right. And Bertrand, and we'll talk about that because that doesn't spell good things for us in the future, I don't think. But so changes in and out and all that stuff. But back to the 4-2-3-1, which I thought we were going to be just fine. I thought we would give them a game, and we did for 9 minutes, and then that was kind of it.
Yeah.
But one thing I noticed watching on TV is that the stadium is relatively empty at the start of it, at least from the camera angle that I saw. And I'm here in the States, so midweek games are hard to watch because it's 12 noon. Had we not been on a minimum day schedule, I probably wouldn't have been able to watch it all. And I still have technically stuff to do, but I scheduled meetings with myself and I watched the game and it was great. But is a midweek match, does there has to be something extra to draw people into a midweek match to come out on a weeknight like that?
I mean, I think it's just down to the form and the level of entertainment people are getting. It's a lot easier to go to a very cold stadium on a Wednesday night after you've been working all day when the team are on good form. I mean, I was surprised to see it that empty. It looked like crazy empty. I don't know what the attendance was actually, but it looked really bad. And I think, you know, people do vote with their feet. I mean, that could be a visual sign to the people upstairs at Saints that, you know, we've had 18 months of not much fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, we started that game. We were attacking. We got 2 corners right away. We looked somewhat dangerous. And then it seemed like that Mara's goal kind of just set the tone for the rest of the match. And I don't know if I think that's true. What I saw was that Bertrand came and he came and we lost the ball, and Bertrand tried to close down whoever had the ball, and he kind of tucked in narrow and high up the pitch and was caught out of position, and then Mahrez was kind of just set free. Lamina slips. Go ahead.
The cardinal sin watching that goal, and every single one of us that was watching in Dubai said exactly the same thing as Mahrez has got the ball. Don't back off Mahrez. Everyone knows what this guy can do, and our players backed off him and backed off him and backed off him and backed off him, almost like go on, see what you can do. See if you can score from here. Go on, have a go. And so what did he do? It's so frustrating to watch, that was real basics.
Yeah, and when Lamina slipped and nobody stepped forward to kind of close him down, Yoshida is probably 5 yards from him when he takes the shot, and that's just too far. And that shot was still from outside the area, and I don't know if we expect Forster to get there or not, but it was demoralizing. And from there, I think it was downhill. I think it
was game over looking back.
Yeah. One thing I did notice was that they were playing balls up to Vardy a lot throughout portions of the match, and he was able to kind of just one touch them back to a midfielder or somebody else who was close enough to him to be able to do that. And then he's making runs, and they're doing 1, 2, 3 kind of 1 or 2 touch passes, and they're in creating chances. And that is, I haven't seen our defense get carved open that way in a long time. And you start to wonder, and the manager spoke about it afterwards. Were we 100% there? Were we really in it? And it didn't really seem like we were.
Well, for me, there was two major problems that are key to why we got not just beaten, but soundly beaten. One is tactical. We weren't making committed defensive moves. At least the back four weren't. If you look at the stats for the game, our midfielders were trying their best, but our defence were backing off players. They weren't marking tightly. They were backing off players. I think in total, Van Dijk and Yoshida made 2 tackles between them the whole game. Whereas against Chelsea, if you just fast forward a second to the back three against Chelsea, we made 7 tackles. And in a game where we're playing a much better team, but weren't under the cosh because our defenders were actually making tackles.
Right.
And I don't know if that was a conscious tactical decision by Pellegrino or not. It may have been not. It may be just a coincidence. It may be the players just weren't at the races. The second problem was the commitment of the players. In that game against Leicester, we were second to everything. Everything. Even when we were 4-1 down, they were busting a gut to get to everything, and our players were half-hearted. Mm-hmm. And Van Dijk was appalling. It was almost like it was the performance of somebody who couldn't care less. He wasn't closing people down. He was at fault as much as anyone. And I don't know if that was a sign that his days are finished, because you can't have that lack of commitment and expect to get anywhere in the Premier League. It's just not going to happen.
No.
And Leicester, everyone knows of Leicester. They're a very good team on the break. They have been for 2 or 3 years. And what did they do? They sat back, and every time they broke, they looked like they were going to score. That game could have been 5-6-1, and we could have had no complaints.
Yeah. I think several people tweeted during the match, like, hey, this just in, Leicester's pretty good on the counter. And their second goal comes from a corner that they won off of a counter. And they just beat, like you said, they beat us to everything. They beat us to balls in the box. We didn't close people down. We allowed them to get shots and crosses off without any kind of real pressure. And that, to me, like you said, that shows a lack of commitment on the players. Like they had mailed it in at some point. And to me, that's maybe the most unacceptable thing. Like, I can take a loss. You can get beaten and beaten badly, but you gotta show up. And I just didn't think it happened.
Yeah. If we'd have battled our hardest and lost that game 2-1 to a goal on the break, you'd have said, okay, fair enough, it happens. But there was a level of gutlessness in that team performance, and like you said, that's unacceptable. I mean, at the end of the day, if you concede from your own corner, I mean, what's going on there? It's just basics.
Yeah.
That's what went wrong for me in that game. There was the team, for whatever reason, weren't doing the basics right, and that's why you end up getting hammered. I mean, a good stat that I saw during the game, and I haven't verified it, so if it's wrong, I apologise. But that was the first time Okazaki's ever scored 2 goals in one Premier League game.
I heard that as well. I think it is correct, but we'll see.
Yes. And stats like that just don't bode well, do they?
No. And he also got an assist, which I don't think he had ever done either. Assist and a goal in the same game.
Yeah, and it's crazy. What is crazy and shows how like ridiculous the Premier League can be at times is there was that opportunity for Austin at 3-1 with about 20 minutes to go, and you think it was just before they went 4-1 up. If Austin had put that away, and it's 3-2, maybe things would have been different. Maybe we would have had the impetus to get a point. I don't know, but we wouldn't have deserved it.
No.
Everything about it was pretty embarrassing, to be honest. And it's a sad state of affairs, but I think a lot of people felt the same as me. As disappointing and horrible as it was, you kind of felt a little bit pleased for Claude Puel.
Yeah.
He got unnecessary grief from us. And of course, being the man he is, he showed the dignity not to rub that in our faces.
Right.
If I'd have been Claude Puel at that final whistle, I'd have been running on the pitch and jumping and punching the air.
Yeah. Center circle, clapping everybody off.
Yeah, he's not that kind of guy, and fair play to him. I mean, I'll give you another caveat to this game. On Saturday, I was driving, and I had the local radio that does the international commentary here, and I listened to Leicester v Palace on the radio.
Okay.
And this is 3 days after they've turned us over at St Mary's, 4-1, and they're playing Palace at home, and Palace hammered them in the same way they hammered us. Tore them to pieces. They won 3-0. They could have been way more. So Saints aren't in a good place at the moment. And the trick is now is how do we get out of it?
Yeah. And sometimes what I don't understand is how a team can go from just 3 or 4 days in between matches and be that different. Like we saw, Leicester was a different team on Wednesday than they were on Saturday. And so were Saints. And I guess I don't quite understand. I don't understand how you don't keep that up. And I know teams suffer sometimes, but it seems like every other game we don't know which Southampton team is going to step out there on the pitch.
Yeah, we don't. We've got no identity at the moment. I don't think I think if you ask the coaching staff or the backroom guys at Saints, what is our remit? What is Southampton Football Club's remit when we go on the pitch? I don't think they could tell you. No.
Any complaints on the manager and how he handled that match in terms of substitutions or in-game changes or anything like that?
No, because I think he was shell-shocked. By the time he could change anything, it was too late.
Yeah,
the game was lost in the first half. He didn't have time to react, and would he have reacted in the right way anyway? Probably not.
No, and I'm not even sure if when we go down by 2, if he makes I'm not sure you make a substitution at that point. I'm not sure you pull off a defensive midfielder and you pull off Romeo and say, like, this is what we're going to do now. Because I don't think that really does. I don't know if that does anything for anybody's confidence or anything else.
Well, it's a difficult one. When you're in a situation, and I'm sure he was in that situation, where you're thinking, right, well, the game's lost. 38 minutes, they're 3-0 up. The game's lost. So, what do you do? What do you do for the best? Do you try and see the game out and keep people's confidence up? Or do you try and go for it? There's an argument to say that 3-0 down, going for it's a waste of energy.
Yeah, going into the fixture kind of congested timeline that we're on. Yeah, and we have other matches that are, Chelsea. I don't think very many people in terms of the voting I saw, nobody thought it was winnable. But we have a match against Huddersfield, and then we have we need to pick up points now.
One of my concerns with Pellegrino is we went in at half time 3-0 down at home to Leicester. I think it was the first time we were that many down in the first half for a long time at home for years. Perhaps back to 2005, I think I saw was the last time we were 3-0 down at half time at home. But I don't think he's the character. What that dressing room needed was a telling off. And I was going to use a different word then, but I'm not sure what's allowed on the podcast.
Thank you.
But they needed to be ripped a new one.
Yeah.
For want of a better phrase. And I don't think he's the character to do that.
No, probably not. And I can say that yesterday on the touchline, he looked more nervous against Chelsea than I've seen him look in a long time.
I think he's as bemused as anyone. I think that's the reality. I think we're all in the stands or watching on TV and we're bemused at what we're seeing from this sort of schizophrenic Southampton team that looks like it puts a good show of itself against Man City, is unlucky not to beat Arsenal, then gets run ragged by Leicester. I think even he's bemused by it, and that's what worries me, because I don't think, to me, it looks like he knows how to fix it. And if you don't know how to fix it, how long can you be allowed to be given the job of fixing it? Because if you can't fix it now, and you're not going to be able to fix it in another 3 or 4 months' time, that might be too late for us. I've never been a reactionary Saints fan. I've never been one to really chase for managers to lose their job, but my fear is if we don't act before January and it doesn't get any better, we're in big trouble.
I do have a couple questions on that note. Is afterwards, people were really upset with the manager. I saw a lot of blame going towards him for being kind of out tactically maneuvered by Puel is kind of what people were saying. Do you think that's the case, or was it a case of him being let down by the players, or is it a combination of those things, or what did you make of some of those comments that were flying around on social media?
I think it's a combination. I think he was soundly tactically beaten. I don't know what the instructions were for our players, but like I said, if you look at it statistically, we had more possession, but when we didn't have possession, we didn't seem to be making tackles. Mm-hmm. Almost like we were told to stand off their players, which is very odd. But also, like I said earlier, there were players in that game that didn't do a professional job. They didn't give their everything that game. Van Dijk was wandering around the back line, like without a care in the world.
Yeah.
I don't want to pick on Van Dijk because he's a contentious character anyway. But he was a standout for me, like I said, and Cedric and Romeo, who was player of the season last year, and for me hasn't really done a great deal this year at all. But in this game he was particularly poor. I don't know what's happened with him. So you can't blame the manager entirely, but the manager's job is also to motivate these players.
Yes.
It's not just tactics. It's the manager's job to identify that players aren't up for it or aren't showing commitment, and then making them show that commitment. And again, I go back to the personality of the manager. If we compare now to managers we've had, we had success under Adkins, because you speak to any player that played for Nigel Adkins for Saints, they adored the man. He wasn't a strict disciplinarian, but they adored him. They wanted to play for him. Then we had Pochettino, who was similar. Players love playing for him. You can see that with Spurs now as well. They'll run through brick walls for him. Then we have Koeman,
take pay
who's
cuts
slightly
from
different.
him.
Yeah. And then you've got Koeman, who's a slightly different approach, which is he's a disciplinarian. With Koeman, it's my way or the highway.
Right.
Whether that's with the players or with the board. He's happy to upset people. But it got results, because people know they can't mess him around. Then we went to Claude Puel, who, as we said, on paper did a good job, but there seemed to be unrest with the players behind the scenes. And Pellegrino, I think, might be a similar character. And he's not a disciplinarian. He's not a huggy, feely, you're all my sons, like some of our previous managers are. And what my concern is have our board gone for Puel and then Pellegrino because they didn't like having a Koeman who's a my way or the highway type of guy.
Right.
And that goes up as well. So have they gone for more placid characters intentionally because they want someone who isn't going to answer them back? But the side effect of that is we've now got managers that the players aren't reacting to because they're neither being disciplined by them or getting that warm feeling from them.
Right.
I don't know. That's my concern. My concern with Puel, and now the same with Pellegrino, is that perhaps they're not the right personalities. And what makes that even more of a concern is we pushed to get Puel out, and maybe we were right to do that. But if you look at their records of the two of them, they might have the same personality, but actually on paper, Puel is the man with success behind it.
Yeah.
Champions League semi-finals, league titles. Pellegrino hasn't got that. So it's scarily looking like we've gone for a similar personality to Puel, but with less experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's my concern. And I think it has to be addressed one way or another. Sure.
There also seems to be kind of a drastic kind of change in managerial approval from week to week. We go to Man City and people say, it was a great performance. It was a tactical masterclass. It was this, it was that. And not everybody agrees with that, obviously. Some people think it's, you go and you sit that many people behind the ball, like you don't deserve to win. But then you go to a game like Leicester City, and to me, I'm looking at that match going, I'm putting that more on the players, and it is on the manager, because he has to find a way to motivate them and maybe make those changes and everything else. But to me, all we can train, if you're giving it your all, and we're coming off of a short rest anyway, and I have to put the team out there that I think is the best and can do it, and I do that, and you don't show up, like, I making changes 10 minutes in or 20 minutes in doesn't really do anything in the long term,
But it's a perception issue as well, because if we'd have gone to Man City and been thumped 4-1 and then lost to Leicester 2-1 at home because they got a last minute goal and we were unlucky, the perception would be completely different. It wouldn't be so bad, because
Right.
you would expect to get thumped at Man City.
Right.
And if Leicester had scored like in the last minute, that happens. But because it was the other way around, and Man City scored in the last minute and were a little bit fortunate to beat us, but they're still Man City, so you expect to lose it.
Right.
But then Leicester come to St Mary's and beat us 4-1, and that's disastrous. The points and goal difference outcome is the same, but perception-wise, it's a lot worse this way around.
Right. Right. And I guess, we've been looking at this December or holiday fixture list since the schedules came out. We looked at those first 10 matches, said we have to get this many points here. And then there are going to be matches interspersed between Arsenal and Man City. And we were looking at Everton at the time before the season started and thinking that was going to be a tough match, and we're looking at teams like Leicester and like Huddersfield, next weekend. And we're saying, these are the teams we should be beating. And I'm not even sure we can say that anymore.
Well, I think if you're the manager and at the start of the season you get given your 38 game fixture list, what any good manager will do is they'll go through that fixture list one by one and they'll mark next to it the points they expect to get in that game. So away at Man City, 0. You expect to get 0. Anything more is a bonus. But then when you get to Watford at home, Burnley at home, Swansea at home, Leicester at home, no two ways about it. With our squad, the number next to that fixture should be 3 points.
Yeah.
And that at the moment isn't being delivered.
Correct.
And that's the scary point, because if you're not picking those points up, but you're also getting zeros next to the ones you expect to get zeros, there's only one way you're going, and that's down.
Right. Right. All right.
Depressing, huh?
It is.
Happy
It
Christmas.
is. It's not. Yeah. It's not great. Then, we come off of that performance, and I don't think, obviously nobody was happy with it. I don't think the players were happy with it. I don't think, you or I were happy with it. Twitter, Facebook.
I question a player that comes off that game, and they all do the soundbite interviews after, where they all say it's not good enough, it's not good enough. But why doesn't the interviewer say to them, well, why isn't it good enough? You're walking off the pitch saying it wasn't good enough, but we've just watched you stink the place out for 90 minutes. So if you know it wasn't good enough, then why? Why wasn't it good enough? That's, you're in control of that. We're not.
Right.
That's what frustrates me.
And then how do you change it?
Saints do social media so well when everything's going well. But when it's going bad, we just seem to rub our noses in it with these, stupid videos of them scoring amazing goals in training and all laughing and joking. I think when you're on a poor enough form, we don't need to see that.
It definitely does rub people the wrong way.
And the sound bites after a 4-1 defeat of players going, "Oh, we know it wasn't good enough, and we've got to react." I don't really care what they've got to say after a game like that. I'm not interested in standard media trained footballer responses. It's nothing. It doesn't mean anything.
Sure.
The way you show that you're going to react is by actually reacting.
Yeah, give us something tangible to base that off of.
Yeah. Don't say anything after a game like that. Don't say anything to anyone. Don't do interviews saying, "Oh, we know it was bad." Just in the next game, just go and break your neck to do the best you can.
Yeah.
That's all we ask.
Yeah.
That's all we want, really.
On that note, do you think that the team did that Saturday against Chelsea?
It was much better. I mean, it was much better without ever looking like, we could get anything from the game. But again, Chelsea away, that's one of your zeros. So from a perception point of view, who realistically thought we were going to go and win that game yesterday?
Right.
Not many people. So from a result point of view, it's not that bad because it's what you expect. And the performance was better in many ways. But again, you can analyse that game and say, well, perhaps we should have had a point.
Yeah.
We should have come away with a point because We had a couple of chances. The goal was sloppy that we've let in. Individual mistakes cost us a point potentially.
Right. They were saying before the match that since we've been promoted, this is the worst start we've had. Which I think that goes without saying. I think that's just NBC needed something to say before the kickoff while the referee was staring at his watch. But I thought that when we started that match yesterday, there was a lot of talk beforehand about the lineup that was selected. I think most people tended to agree that Van Dijk should have been dropped, and it sounds like you're in that camp as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's all very well over the summer putting our foot down and saying we're not selling Van Dijk, we don't want to sell him, blah, blah, blah. Like all this hustle and bustle that went on in the summer, that's fine. And we know at his best he's a world-class defender. But that doesn't mean you can allow him to be picked no matter what. And I had no issue with him shaking the team up after that Leicester game because no one made a claim to say that they should definitely start the next game. And Van Dijk's included in that. We have a decent set of centre-backs, I think. To the point where now I'm of the opinion that if we get a decent offer for Van Dijk in January, let's move him on. I don't think he's interested in playing for us. So let's move him on and let's reinvest the money.
I think more and more people are getting there.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much. Let's be honest now. I'm going to be a little bit cynical, but
okay.
This is the way I see it. Not selling Van Dijk in the summer wasn't about, for Saints fans, it wasn't about we mustn't sell Van Dijk. It was we mustn't sell Van Dijk to Liverpool. That's what it came down to. If we had sold him for 50 million to Man City or Chelsea or Arsenal, we'd have been fine with that. But now we're stuck with a player that if he's not interested in playing for us, then there's no point in being around. So we may as well cash in on him.
Yeah, before the value starts to drop because
exactly. If he performs like that every week because he's not interested, then his value is going to go down and down and down.
I think you make a good argument there. Initially, that was my biggest shock was to see him not in there because I guess I was kind of under the impression that he is our best player. He is the best defender we have, but maybe he isn't as far and away the best player as I thought he was. Maybe those other center backs are actually much closer to his ability level. Whether it's because he is not 100% committed or maybe just because those other guys are actually really, really good as well. So maybe he doesn't deserve that kind of elite status.
I think from his point of view, if we look at it from Van Dijk's point of view, no two ways about it. In his mind, his future is not at Southampton. I don't think anyone would argue that could possibly be the case. His future, whether it's January, the summer, whatever, is not at Saints. So if you look at it from his point of view, he's not long back from a serious injury. He psychologically, he might be going into these games now, playing the Saints, thinking, well, I don't want to get injured again. So if I just bide my time and amble through the games, then I'll still be fit. He might be thinking, what if I bust a gut at Southampton and get injured again? And then my dream move is gone for the next year.
Right.
So, I'm not saying he's consciously decided that, but, there's a big element of psychology in sport these days. And perhaps subconsciously he's not putting the effort in because he doesn't want to get injured again.
Sure.
And not because he doesn't want to get injured again because he wants to play for Saints, but if he gets injured again, he's putting in jeopardy a move to Liverpool or whoever it is he wants to play for.
Sure.
But from a Saints point of view, that's not acceptable. And Pellegrino made a comment before the game about his team selection that he can only pick those that are committed to the club, and that in Van Dijk's case in particular spoke volumes to me because, like you say, he's our best player, he's our best centre half. If he's fit, he should be playing. So if the manager's saying I can only pick who's committed to the club and he's on the bench, I'm afraid that's the fat lady is warming her throat up.
Given that, is the manager kind of cutting off his nose to spite his face because by not doing that, we're looking at a team that is maybe less likely to pull out a victory against a Chelsea or pull out a draw against a Chelsea or even any other team in the Premier League, and because the more times that he doesn't pick the best team and we lose, the pressure on the manager grows. And so I think he's caught in a kind of a weird position of sending that message to the fans and to the players that I have to pick the people who are here to back the patch on the front instead of the name on the back versus, just going out there and putting the best team out there because we have to win. Do you think he's endangering himself at all in all of this?
But potentially, yeah. I mean, there's an argument to say you always pick your best players, but there's also he's got a dressing room to manage, and if Van Dijk goes out every week, stinking the place up, and the next week Pellegrino picks him again, what message does that send to Jack Stevens or Wesley Hood or whoever? The point is, for me, with Van Dijk, it would be different if we were struggling for centre halves. But
okay.
in Yoshida, Hood and Stevens, I think we've got a decent set of centre halves there. So do we need Van Dijk? Is Van Dijk as key a player as we thought? I mean, if you look at the game, with those three at the back, we conceded one goal to Chelsea, which was a free kick.
Yeah.
So the centre halves didn't do a particularly bad job in that game. So is it a problem? I think last season we might have built up Van Dijk to be more important to us than he is.
Yeah.
And that was a side effect of Font leaving, and then Van Dijk getting injured, made Van Dijk seem like this irreplaceable god, when actually, based on this season, I'm not sure he's as important as we thought he was, especially if he's not 100% committed.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess moving on to look at some other aspects of the game, because there were some things I think here that we can look at in somewhat of a positive fashion. Although we did lose, and Yoshida gave away that free kick right at the end, and Forster probably should have saved it. He made a couple other saves on the day that I thought were good, but in the end, obviously, it didn't happen. But I think maybe something we need to look at is both of our fullbacks came off injured yesterday, and that's going to. I think we have two of the best fullbacks in the Premier League. I would tend to choose them over most other fullbacks, wingbacks. It doesn't matter. I think they're great. I think the drop off in quality after that is going to be huge. I don't dislike Jeremy Payet or whatever his name, however you pronounce it. But he's not Cedric. And then you look over on the left-hand side, Matt Targett is definitely not Bertrand. You have Sam McQueen who has played over there in the past, and you kind of wonder, who's going to do that. But, I don't know, anything else kind of in the match before we kind of talk about the fullbacks and the injuries that really stood out to you as something that needs to be addressed? I
mean, not really. We made the odd chance. I think one of the most frustrating things, and I know I'm not alone in this, one of the most frustrating things watching Saints at the moment is watching Nathan Redmond get released with the ball, because he seems to get the ball in key positions and he's got pace, and he goes and he goes and he goes, and you think this is it, put the right ball in, and then he goes back, and then he stops, and then he goes back again, and then he stops, and then it just comes to nothing. He'll either get dispossessed or he'll pass the ball all the way back to one of the centre halves. Right. And that kid has got the ability. I'm absolutely certain of it. I'll bang the drum for him. He's got the ability. I think he's absolutely zero confidence at the moment. And again, where's the motivation for him? Because he just looks like he doesn't want to do anything with the ball once he gets there. And I think he's another one who's taken some criticism, and perhaps that's affecting him more than people realise. And because of the criticism, he doesn't want to take any risks.
Yeah. And when he's picked in that formation, I think he's there to, one, be that long release, if we need to clear it and run the ball down into the channels and things like that. And two, to help the striker press. I think those are his jobs there. And Gabbiadini was making runs kind of all day yesterday, and we couldn't find him either from the deeper line midfield positions or with Redmond when he was running with the ball. We couldn't do it. And Redmond is frustrating because it's just like if you took two more steps and went by someone, there are chances there. Yeah.
You've got it's partly the fans' fault as well, because it's the same with Buffon. If you've got a player like Redmond and Buffon, for them to do what they do best, you've got to accept that occasionally it's not going to work and they're going to lose the ball. Mm-hmm. But instead of massive collective groan, you've got to encourage players like that. And that's, I think, Redmond's problem. He gets into that position and he thinks, right, I can either try something here, but if it doesn't come off, I'm going to get a load of grief from the crowd.
Right.
Or I can play a nice simple pass back to Romeo there in midfield and no one's on my back.
Sure.
And it's psychology again.
To use something from the Arsenal game as an example, Alexis lost the ball. I think it was either 37 or 38 times that he was dispossessed that many times that match.
Of course.
But
the best players will be.
Yeah. But he puts in that cross that gets them the goal, that gets them the draw. Like that's the risk that comes with playing a player like that. Now, and there is something to be said that you can't have too many of those players on the pitch that way because, but that they're out there with that expectation, that knowledge that that's going to happen, but you got to do the other side of it too. You got to allow them to get at people. If they're not going to get at people, then they probably need to come off the pitch.
It's like, look at the goal, the ridiculous goal that Buffon scored against West Brom.
Right.
If the crowd groans and gets on his back every time he loses the ball trying to take someone on, then those goals are going to go. There's going to be no more goals like that because he's going to go, right, well, I'm not going to take people on anymore.
Right.
I'm going to play a safe pass backwards or sideways because I'm not going to take people on because I get too much grief. And I think that's the position Redmond's in. In Redmond's first season, he was taking people on and he was having shots from 30 yards and he was putting crosses in. Now he just seems to want to do anything but.
Right.
The only other explanation is that it's being coached out of him. And I really don't want to believe that our manager is telling one of our more dynamic forwards, when you get to the edge of the box, pass it backwards. Don't take any risks because then, we may as well give up.
God, I mean, looking at some of the stats, Chelsea managed 24 shots, 16 of those on target. We had players putting blocks in, putting challenges in the area. Forster was making saves and things like that. The commitment seemed to be there slightly more.
Yeah, it was a much more committed performance than it was against Leicester. If you look at the stats, the amount of tackles our defenders put in compared to against Leicester is considerably higher, like 7 or 8 times higher.
Right.
And I don't know, maybe it's a motivational thing. Maybe because they're playing Chelsea, there's a subconscious need to play better or be more committed, which would explain the Arsenal games and the Man City games. But if that's the case, then again, it's down to motivation. They need to be motivated to play every team.
Yeah. And you would have thought, though, that the Leicester City game, this is the manager who came in that you dislike so much that he's gone. You should be up for that, too.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Why didn't they want to, show him what they can do without his restrictions?
Right.
But maybe they've got new restrictions.
Yeah.
And I have to make a comment on Forster as well because, I felt for him a little bit because it's the true goalkeeper's curse. He did make some decent saves in that game, but he has to take the blame for the defeat because we've lost 1-0 and he should take that. There's no two ways about it. It was the classic Forster non-save where he's gone down so slow that he's given himself no chance. He was still messing around with his wall. I don't think his wall was set up right either. So let's not let Yoshida get away with it. It's a stupid foul to give away in the first place. But Forster's got to do better. And we're now in a situation where if we don't have a dreadful team performance and get hammered, we're having an okay team performance, but an individual mistake is losing us the game. We're doing a very good job at the moment of finding ways to lose games.
Yes.
And that's just a pretty poor situation to be in.
Absolutely. There are other talking points that we could go through in the game if we really wanted to, but I think we've kind of summed them up enough. There was one moment at the end of the match where I think we almost cost ourselves any chance of getting back into it. We fouled Morata. They took the free kick very quickly. We weren't quite ready, and Fabregas kind of rolled that ball across the line. And had that gone in, that would have been game over right there. It didn't, but obviously we didn't get back into the game anyway. But I think concerns moving forward are the fact that we have this kind of fixture congestion and both of our fullbacks are injured. But as it sits now, we're 18 matches played. We're 12th in the table. We only have 18 points. That's not obviously good enough.
We're now only 1 point ahead of Palace.
Yeah.
Who started the season with 7 defeats and no goals.
And Everton are above us. It's not looking good. And I've been maybe easier on the manager and the team and believing that they're going to get this together and turn it around. But I'm even getting to the point now where I'm starting to worry. And I think it's justified at this point, but I don't know.
Yeah. The problem is you can be pragmatic and you can get to a point where you don't know what to do next. And if you're at that point, then it's very, very scary because I'm of the opinion now that perhaps Pellegrino is not the right man. If he isn't, then we're in trouble if they don't get rid of him, because, where do you go? If things stay as they are the rest of this season, we're in a relegation battle. And that's somewhere no one expected us to be at the start of the season, but that's the way our form is going, unfortunately. It seems bizarre, but, what's going on? I mean, I wonder who the shop stewards are in our squad. Who's the leader in the dressing room that's going to go to the board and say, this guy's not good enough. That's what happens. Senior players. You look at Chelsea. I mean, how many managers did John Terry get sacked?
Right.
But sometimes that might be needed to be done, because the board might be not realising what's going on. Really, they might think everything's rosy and we're just struggling a bit for being unlucky or whatever. But it's a very worrying situation. I mean, right now, I think if I'm Les Reed right now, I think I'd be making the difficult decision to move the manager on. I really do.
I'm not sure. I'm still of the belief that he might be.
My justification.
Okay.
Let me give you my justification. My justification of that is that, look at our squad on paper. That is not a squad that should be struggling or heading into a relegation battle. It simply isn't. That's a minimum. The worst case scenario, that's a 11th or 12th place squad. Worst case. Best case, that's a 7th or 8th place squad. So if it gets relegated, it will be horrendous.
The guys on Stat Attack, there's a Sky Sports does a podcast called Stat Attack that I really do enjoy. And they put together a list of all of the teams based on squad value. So the projected value, if they were to sell all of their players and things like that, the money they would get. Our rank there is eighth place. We are the 8th most expensive squad in the Premier League. And if you kind of do the table based on that, I'll put it out later. It doesn't look good, because we're down places. We're down 4 places from where we should be. And I've done this kind of most weeks, and I usually just keep it to myself, but I have a little note thing where you sort it based on the number of places you're down, and then you look at who's done what with their managers, and really all the managers around us, all the managers below us have been sacked. And so we're creeping towards that. And like you said, you're not a reactionary person. You don't like to be that way. And I don't want to be either, but I am worrying at this point.
Well, we're playing Huddersfield on Saturday. They're 1 place above us, 3 points above us. If the unthinkable happens, and let's face it, on this season's form, it's not unthinkable anymore. If they turn us over, they've just beaten Watford 4-1 at Watford. If they beat us on Saturday, that will be halfway the season done, and we could be, 15th, 16th if other results don't go our way,
sure.
And we'll certainly be within a minimum of 3 points of the relegation zone, and that's half the season done.
Right.
You got half a season to recover. It's enough games to recover, but the way we're playing at the moment, it's very difficult to see us come doing anything else.
Yeah.
That's the scary point. We're not finishing games and saying, we were quite unlucky today. No, we're being outplayed by the teams that we should be beating. The teams that we shouldn't be beating, we seem to be doing a little bit better against.
Mm-hmm.
But the teams we should be beating aren't just beating us; they're beating us comfortably. Watford beat us very comfortably. Yes. Leicester beat us very comfortably. That's the worry for me. If you break down the wins we've had, we played Palace at their lowest ebb and only beat them 1-0.
Uh-huh.
We played West Ham, who were on poor form, and were lucky perhaps to beat them 3-2.
Uh-huh.
That's two of our 4 wins. It's pretty bleak. If you analyse it deep enough, yes. We're in quite a bleak situation.
All right.
And a happy new year.
Yeah. Moving forward into that match with Huddersfield, a squad, by the way, that our squad is 4.5 times as expensive as theirs. But going forward, any major changes to the team that you would suggest or think that we should try out?
I'd like to see, against Huddersfield, I'd like to see Højbjerg and Lemina in midfield. If we're going to stick to this 4-2-3-1, which for the record I don't have a problem with, I still think it's the best formation for the players we've got. I'd like to see Lemina and Højbjerg play together in the central role. I think Romeo's been off form for a while now. I don't think it'll do him any harm to have a spell on the bench. Let's see how those 2 players get on, because Lemina prior to his injury was very good, and Højbjerg's possibly been our best player of late. So I'd like to see them two together just to see how they get on. And if you're going to do it, you may as well do it against Huddersfield. I'd probably give Hutt and Stevens a partnership at some point as well together. There's a potential for a lack of experience, I guess, with them two. But we've got to now look at perhaps a future lacking Van Dijk. So why not give them a go?
Yeah, you would think that those two would be the center backs of the future. Yoshida is probably going to provide some of that veteran leadership. Van Dijk's probably moving on. Bednarak becomes the new Stevens, and those two kind of move forward. But Højbjerg has earned himself a chance to play again. I think even last year, going back to some of the matches where him and Classy played together, he was the standout kind of midfielder. He can do more of that box-to-box role that really Romeu doesn't do very well. Romeu, I think, is a traditional kind of holding midfielder. And I think Lemina, as much as he tries to do it all, I think that's more of his role as well. So you let Højbjerg kind of run up and down and do that and get into the box and things like that to help out the attack. I think that would be good.
And a quick mention on Lemina as well. I meant to bring this up earlier when we were talking about the fullbacks getting injured against Chelsea. Is there a concern that we're rushing players back from injury too fast? Cedric came straight back into the team and has got injured again. And Lemina made a comment after the Chelsea game to say that he's struggling with his ankle at the moment.
Right, that he's not 100%.
Yeah, so if he's not 100%, why is he playing?
Right. I mean, and then when he says that, it just makes me think back to that first Mahrez goal when he slips and doesn't really get up and attempt to get back in his way,
And is a player who themselves doesn't believe they're 100%, how much commitment are they going to give you? That's another concern for me. If players themselves think they shouldn't be playing, then they shouldn't be playing.
Yeah, and
maybe we've lost faith. I think we lost faith a long time ago in our youth squad. We don't seem to be using them like we used to. It's very strange.
Right. I don't know if you've ever watched any of the matches that they play. They're not performing particularly well week in, week out. It's somewhat disheartening because that is, to be honest, that's one of those things. When I looked at the club, the academy system was a big draw for me. I really liked that idea, that the players were being brought through, that we were developing people, that we were identifying kind of, young players who could be worked with and be made better and things like that. I really, really like that idea. And now it's not seeming like it's there.
I think it's a shame that Sims is injured because I think he was making a play to be included more last season. And I think he's exactly the type of player we need at the moment, a very direct sort of wide player. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a shame that he's been injured, but then Hesketh has been in good form as an attacking midfielder and he's not been given a chance. So, have we gone as a club? Are we moving away from this academy reputation?
Yeah.
Because I don't know. Although Puel, I think did use them, to be fair, but at the same time he had more fixtures to deal with because of Europa League. My concern, I guess, is that we've lost that identity. We've lost that. We built up a very good reputation as being a team that used its youth players and played dynamic attacking football. We had that under Adkins. We had it under Pochettino. We had it under Koeman. It went awry under Puel, and it doesn't seem to be going back anytime soon.
All right. Well, maybe this kind of goes into it a little bit. I have a listener question here from Todrick, who's at Todrick33. He says, I have a question for your next guest. I'd like to know your thoughts on McQueen. I'm a huge fan of speedy wing play and would love to see more of him and other young talent. It kind of goes to what we're talking about now. But in the context of Bertrand being injured, do you think McQueen comes in and plays a role in that either wingback role or in the left-sided fullback role if Bertrand is out for an extended period of time?
Well, I think based on his performances when he has played, I don't think he's done anything particularly wrong. I mean, I don't think he's not as good as Bertrand. He's never going to unseat Bertrand, if you like, from the position. But at the same time, he's never really done anything wrong when he's been asked to play there. So, I mean, personally, I don't have an issue with him as a backup fullback. I also don't have an issue with Targett as a backup fullback, to be honest. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting that Todrick said about speedy wing play because, of course, McQueen was a winger.
Right.
He's only been playing left back since he's got an opportunity with the first team. He was always a winger in the youth teams, and when he went on loan to Southend, I think it was, he played on the wing for them, and I think he scored a few goals.
Yeah.
So it makes you wonder why he's not been given a chance, in the front three out wide, because, we're not pulling up trees in that position.
Sure.
So if he can do that job, the same goes for Hesketh. In the position we're not pulling up trees in, why are they not being given a chance to show us what they can do? If you think about all these young players in the Saints Academy, they came to Saints because Saints is sold. Saints as a club is sold to young players on this notion that we're the route to the first team.
Sure.
Famously, players have chosen to join Saints Academy ahead of Chelsea or Man United or Liverpool because at those clubs they traditionally wouldn't get a chance in the first team, whereas at Saints we've got a conveyor belt of players coming through. Now, what concerns me, I guess, is that if you've got a player like McQueen or Hesketh who's been sold this idea that Saints will give them the path to the first team, and they're playing for the under-23s, not even getting on the bench for the first team, and Redmond is having a period of very poor form, their motivation must be down to zero.
Yeah.
Because if the players in your position in the first team aren't playing well and you're not getting a chance, then you know that you're never going to get that chance. Because if Redmond finds form, then that's your chance gone. I don't know what's happened in the Southampton way, which of course is nonsense anyway. The Southampton way. It's just blurb, isn't it? It doesn't mean anything, really. It doesn't mean anything. But it's this marketing way that we've sold the club on, and to a point we were doing that. We were playing nice football. We were giving kids a chance, and it just seems to have all gone away. I wonder if we just let our expectations run away with us a little bit, and we've been due this sort of lull. I don't know. Either way, we don't want it.
It's a very real possibility. We have another question from Shannon Smith, who's at Shannon Smith 2. He said, "Is it diva players or managerial incompetence?" I think we kind of addressed that at the beginning of the show, so we won't rehash it here unless there's anything you'd like to add to it.
Yeah, it's a little of column A and a little of column B.
Yeah.
Simple as that. That's the problem, is that as a combination, it's not great. You can have diva players, but with a good manager, you get away with it, or you can have an incompetent manager, Harry Redknapp, for example, but have good players like he had at Spurs, and they got to the Champions League. So, but you have diva players and managerial incompetence. It's not ideal.
No. All right, so I have a couple questions for you, a slight quiz, if you will.
Okay.
And we touched on this earlier. We talked about kind of making the individual errors costing us games. So, in terms of expected goals against, that Opta-stat that they have come up with, I'm sure you're familiar with it at least a little bit. So expected goals against. Do we rank top 6, mid-table, or relegation zone in terms of the number and quality of chances we're allowing other teams?
Oh, I think we'd do pretty well in that.
Yeah, we are a top 6 side if you just look at the quality and the number of chances we have allowed other teams. Let's drop down then to, are we in the top 6, mid-table, or relegation zone in terms of defensive errors, number of defensive errors?
Again, I think we'd do quite well. I think we'd be expected to do well.
We are the second worst in terms of defensive errors. We are 19 defensive errors
that's poor.
It is. And can you name the player on the squad who has made the most defensive errors? And it's not a defender.
Okay. The player who's made the most. Well, I'm gonna go for, just because of the way he plays, he loses the ball a lot, I guess. I would maybe Buffon.
Okay. It's not him. He's a really big guy.
A Romeo?
Forster.
Oh, okay. That's not actually that surprising. When you said not defender, I was thinking of attackers.
Yeah, so Forster has 6 individual errors, which ranks most in the Premier League. And we were talking earlier about just the fact that it's those individual mistakes that are costing us, and I think that the stats kind of back that up a little bit, where the quality of chances that we're conceding on a regular basis are not bad. We're doing quite well, but it's the fouls that we give away on the edge of the box that lead to a free kick, or giving the ball away when Tadic did that the other day, when he gave the ball away right on the edge of the area. Those types of things are costing us, and right now I don't think we're good enough to be able to overcome those issues.
it's frustrating, isn't it? I mean, I'm looking at the league table now, and how many teams above us in the table right now would you swap squads with? There's the obvious ones.
Sure.
But would you swap squads with Burnley?
No.
Who are in fifth? No. Would you swap squads with Leicester?
No.
Watford?
No.
Huddersfield?
No, God, no.
So there we go. That in itself tells you everything you need to know about the team, the fact the team's underperforming.
Jesus. I mean, yeah, if you start to look at some of those teams who are below us too, and just the type of form they've been in and how close they are to us now, it doesn't spell good things for us. But I do want to say thank you for coming on the show, for episode 50. I'm happy that we got to chat again. And, I'm sorry it maybe isn't under the best of circumstances, but I have enjoyed talking to you. You made me laugh quite a few times, so I appreciate that. And, I'd love to do this again if you're up for it.
Yeah, no problem. It's the hope that kills you, I think, in supporting Saints. But when we're poor, at least it gives us more to talk about. I can't remember who said it, but someone famously said that you learn a lot more about yourself when you're losing, and I think that's definitely true.
Yeah. I don't dislike doing the show anymore when we're losing. I enjoy talking about the team, but I am searching for answers at this point. You know,
it'd be boring if we were winning every week. The show would never be any interest, right?
Yeah, it just talk about how good we were.
Yeah,
you know,
patting each other on the back.
Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
I'm going to the Huddersfield game on Saturday. So hopefully, last season I had a 100% record at home of wins. So hopefully I can bring us a little bit of luck.
All right.
And if not, I'll be turning the air blue.
Well, it'll be a good Christmas present if you can give us a home win with some goals.
Yeah, no promises.
No, well, that's okay. And I don't know if I can say that you're taking your fiance to her first ever trip to St. Mary's.
That's right, yeah.
So I hope that you guys have an enjoyable time, and hopefully it's not, miserably cold or anything else. I'll be sitting in California. It will be something like 65 or 70 degrees on Christmas Day, and I'll be really, really enjoying myself.
Have a good Christmas.
You too, man. And that does it for episode 50 of the Southampton Delivery Podcast. I'd like to thank my guest, Chris Rann. You can find him on Twitter at CRStig, and you can visit his website at georgewearscousin.com. There were lots of changes on this week's show. Please let us know what you think of them by getting in contact with us on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. We're on Twitter and Instagram at SFCDELL_IVERY, and we're on Facebook at facebook.com/SFCDelivery. We will be back next week with another episode, so be sure to subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Acast, Google Play, TuneIn Radio, or wherever else you get your podcasts to be sure that you do not miss an episode. And a reminder, we're also available on SoundCloud and YouTube. All music for this episode comes courtesy of the Free Music Archive at freemusicarchive.org. The intro song is Epic Song by Boxcat Games. The end of show credits that you're listening to now is Aim is True by Poddington Bear, and other songs include 1.26 Beat 1 by BOPD. Links to all of those songs are in the show notes. Be sure to check them out. And before we go, we want to encourage you to check out the We Are Southampton page on Instagram. For matchday edits, polls, competitions, and more, be sure to check out the We Are Southampton page on Instagram. Matt, who runs the page, has been a guest on the show. He did the logo. He's been a huge help, and his page is truly great. So head on over to the We Are Southampton page on Instagram and check it out. Once again, my name is Matt Markstone. Thank you for listening to the show. I hope that you've enjoyed it. And until next time, remember that together, we march on.